I'm so sorry I can't be with you, but the words that I have written will possibly do the job for me. I've written with love. My lovely sister Marlene Butterfield Landy died of pancreatic cancer today. My brothers Clyde and Randy were by her side. I've lived in the UK for the past 5 years and thought that I would fly to Bermuda the day before the funeral and stay at my brother Clyde's house in Southampton, but that was not possible. I cannot believe that she has died. I knew she was not feeling well, but she was always been a fighter. I thought that she would have won the fight that she had started, but oh no, she let go and died and passed away. We will all miss her so very much. I loved her so. All I can think of is the two of us laughing and talking with each other about the family and some particular members, particularly Gladwin, always worried about his horn, especially Clyde and Randy. The boys were always trying to out each other, and especially Randy, who knew what they were doing, and ran to you, Marlene, at your house to complain about what the brothers were doing. Marlene always told them that they should be ashamed of themselves and to stop what they were doing. Marlene really told them off, and they said that they would stop, but they didn't. Marlene would do anything. She swam as fast as the brothers when they were going to Meterbury Island in Elis Harbour, where they always went. Then they swam across the water from the island to Mr. Fisher's wharf. Mr. Fisher's dogs barked at them, but they got on the wharf anyway. Marlene could swim very strongly, and she would always swim from Elis Harbour beach to the island, even when a storm was coming. And she made it easily. I did too, but did not do so too well, but rather walked along the bridges of what was called General Clancy's Bridge to the end part of the island. She was always mad at me for following her, but I did anyway. One time the storm waves were so strong that she became frightened and came out in the storm swells to get me. She would give me a good talking to, but she came anyway. No matter how angry she would be, she was going to tell our daddy about me, and he would be very angry with me, and sometimes I would get a spanking from daddy. Wherever Marlene went, I followed, and sometimes I would cry, and she would come out and get me, no matter how angry she was. She begged me to stop following her, but I did not. I loved her so. When she started seeing boys, mostly the Phillip boys, I followed her again, and I made friends with one of the Phillip boys. His name was Lionel Phillips. This got her very angry, and she hit me. I did not care and continued to follow her. Marlene played marbles or alleys, as we call them, and she could shoot. Nobody wanted to play with her because she could shoot very well and won everybody's marbles, from the Talbots, the Phillipses, the Butterfields, but she kept the marbles. She also made kites for Good Friday. I did too. She always helped me make them. Her kites always went up, but mine did not. She would take my kite from me and make it fly, then give the string back to me, and it started up. Marlene was a very fast runner. She would beat all the girls in her class, and at inter-school sports day, she would beat the competition from different schools and always won prizes. I wanted to be just like her, and finally, when she went to Mrs. Neverson's school, or high school, I wanted to go too, but I could not at that time because we had to pay so much. Mommy could not afford to send both of us at the same time, so I did not go until after Marlene or Kitsy graduated. Then I would go. When she played marbles, I played too, not with her, but with my young friends of the Talbots and the Phillipses, and I always won marbles, and I had lots. Marlene, or Kitsy as we called her, played with Caroline Talbot, and I played with Natalie, the younger sister. Marlene won lots of marbles, and so did I. When she went to secondary school, I was still in elementary school and could not go to the secondary school at the same time. Marlene was a great cricket player. The boys would argue which team she could play on. They all wanted her to play on their team because she was so good. I wanted Mother to do my hair like hers and make clothes like hers. She hated it, but Mother used to say enough for her was good enough for me, so go away. She would sometimes hide my clothes and I could not find the ones that I wanted to wear. Then Mother made her get them for me. It was fun growing up in Elis Harbor, following Kitsy wherever she went. Whenever she went to Sands Secondary School for 1 year, Mother took her out of Sands and sent her to Mrs. Neverson's, where she stayed for a while. But I could not go. It was not time for me to go, so I went to Mrs. Marsh's school, which I hated, by the way. By the time Marlene was out of school and on the way was sent to Mrs. Neverson's school again, I had to wait. Finally, I went to Sands Secondary School and loved it. I also taught gym there and was asked by Mrs. Nichols to teach at other schools as well. West End, Central School, and others, who was very strict. It was Mr. C.C. Snaith and other schools my teaching career began with a vengeance. Mother loved it too, being able to teach at so many schools. A new time and a new age. Marlene loved horses, and I did too. A boy named Guy Edwards brought his horse and carriage to Elis Harbor, where we lived, to show everyone. One time, Marlene got in the carriage, and the horse bolted and was going so fast. She was so frightened. Marlene jumped out of the carriage while it was moving. Mother was always angry about this. When a storm was coming, she made it easily from the bridge to the island. I did too, but did not do too well, but rather walked along the bridges of the General Clancy's bridge to part of the island. She was still mad at me for following her, but I did anyway. One time the storm waves were so strong it was blowing towards our shore that Elis Harbor that she came in the storm swells to get me. She would give me a good talking to, but she came anyway, no matter how angry she would be. She also told me that she would tell our daddy about me, and he would be very angry with me as well, and sometimes I would get a spanking from Daddy. As I said, wherever Marlene and I went, I followed her, and sometimes I would cry, and she would come out and get me, no matter how angry she was. But I did not stop. I loved her so much, and continued to follow her, and she got angry again, and she hit me. Mother got a job at the English sports shop, but hated the man Marlene brought home from Hamilton, whose name was L. Butterfield. Whenever Mother could, she could slam the door in his face and ask him to leave. Marlene cried all the time because she thought that she was in love with him, and I went right back to what I was doing. Marlene belonged to a club called the Amateur Dinghy Club in Hamilton. My sister Marlene was a good person. She tried to help many people, especially the Butterfields, who lived over the fence on where we lived. One time, Clyde spun around in the swing that Daddy made us so fast and screamed until it stopped. Daddy immediately cut the swing down as Clyde cried and cried. He was so frightened. Marlene was a good person. She tried to help many people, especially the Butterfields. I admired her so much and always wanted to be like her. She was, however, very different from me. Wherever she went, I would want to go and giggle about members of the family. Sometimes we would get hysterical, just whispering about the family. Daddy found out via Mother, and he made me write about it or not go swimming for 2 days. This was so hard, as I could hear other children in the water on the beach. My sister Marlene was a good person. She tried to help many people, especially the Butterfields, over the fence. As I said, I can't read my own writing, I'm sorry. As I said, Guy Edwards brought a horse and open carriage to Elis Harbor to show everyone. The horse became nervous and bolted, taking Marlene with it. Marlene was so frightened, she just jumped out of the open carriage while the horse was galloping. She was so frightened, she cried and cried. I felt so sorry for her. She was so frightened. She was such a great athlete. So, what?